Hey there, welcome to Contracts and Chaos. My name's Alyssa.
And I'm Brenna, and we are here to tell you that you are not alone in the mayhem of this real estate industry.
We're keeping it real and sharing our stories, strategies, and successes in today's real estate world.
So come join us every Tuesday while we talk contracts and chaos. Where do we want to start? This is like, so we left off kind of like, we did kind of touch on things that we do as far as like snacks and music for the open house.
Yeah,
I was so shocked that we bled into a 2-part episode on open houses because neither
I
one of us really like
know.
them. That's
I know.
hilarious.
So guys, because we are recording, we are back with week 2 of our open house strategy, which in the middle of this, because we actually are recording it 2 different weeks,
Mm-hmm.
I actually ran an open house, so I can give us some feedback too about like how things worked. Last time
Did you do all of the steps that, like the door knocking and your Facebook event and all that stuff?
I did. I did all of it.
Great.
The only thing I did a story, like I obviously posted a story. I didn't do a reel, but I did film a reel while at the open house. Because I don't think it's under contract
Mm-hmm.
yet. And this one had an in-law suite, and I did this really funny
Oh,
reel
I saw
about like
that.
I did this really funny reel about like how your mother could live in this house with you or your mother-in-law and judge you the entire time. And that one
Very
actually,
funny.
what's funny, that didn't take off as well as Basic Betty did. Basic Betty or Becky, like,
Becky, yeah. There's one I did of like my dog, Ellie, the puppy, like a transformation of her as a puppy and her today. And I don't even remember what I said on it. It had nothing to do with real estate, but it's got 27,000 plays right now. And I'm like,
nice. Or
so it
remember
turns out Ellie's going to start selling real estate.
the right? Or remember the one you did, gosh, when we first met like 3 years ago, um, when the market was crazy and it was the motorcycles in the
In
cage.
the cage, yeah, at the
That one I
fair.
feel like took off like
It really did.
wildfire.
And that was one of the very first videos I ever did. And it was when everything was super crazy and the caption was something like real estate agents when a when a new property hits the market, and like
Yeah,
one
it was cute.
starts in circles and then you end up with like four of those little motorcycle
Hmm.
bikes in the cage, and I was like, "Oh my god, that's hilarious." And it did. It still gets views. And it was literally 4 years ago. So,
So I had a really, for me, what I felt like was a good turnout. I had 6 or 7 groups come through. One was an entire family with a kid that looked like Jason Kelsey.
oh nice.
Um, yeah, right. I did a strawberry theme.
Yep, you
Normally I
said
do
that about your candies and the towels. Yep.
yeah, and so for a snack, normally I put out charcuterie cups. The listing agent had done an open house the night before, and she did charcuterie, and I was like, if someone's coming again to like get a second look,
Do
or
something
like someone's
different.
seen, yeah. So I was wandering around Publix the night before at like 9 o'clock trying to figure out what I was gonna do, and they had chocolate covered strawberries, and I was like, that's perfect. It fits the theme. They were a little more than I wanted to spend, but I was like, they're done. Because at that point I was maxed out with stuff going on in the week, and got put them on a tray, made it look pretty, did the little baggies that had the reusable dishcloth and a tag that said something like thank you very much for stopping by. um and then the back had another like strawberry themed pun about helping you find the perfect house and a couple candies in it. And I made sure everyone got one of those. Everyone walked out with one of my magazines.
Perfect.
um yeah, and I don't do a printout of the information. So
Yeah, me
they
neither.
have to call me.
Hmm.
Yeah, they have to call me. They have to look at my website so that it pushes their information to me.
Hmm.
Um,
Do you set up on your? Because I know you have Lofty. We both have Lofty. Do you do the open house sign-in form with that?
no, nope. I
Ooh,
don't do a
you
sign in
should.
form.
Well, no. So listen, I don't either. But you can scan the QR code and it pulls up that listing, like your landing page. You know what I mean? So
Oh,
it's not like, you should look at that because that's cool, because
okay.
it'll play like the slideshow of all the pictures. I keep it up on my computer and they can scan the QR code for more information, you know?
But I like the idea of a QR code. I
It is
love the
cool
idea.
because it's not like a, here, I need your information, the name of your firstborn child, your social security number, the zip
Right.
code where you were born, like it's just like if they're walking through and they're like, "Hey, I think I want a little more information." They just scan it, and if they fill out their information, great, It's just
Yeah, I love
one
that
step.
idea. I love it, love it, love it.
Okay,
Um,
so let's go. You had a good turnout at the open house. You
yeah,
had your thank you gifts. You had like that whole atmosphere set. So let's do. I'm walking into your open house right now. What was the address? 123 Main Street, right?
yeah. 123 Banana Street. It's 434 something Hollow Pine. I don't know. Hollow Pines. 403 Hollow
That's okay.
Pine.
That's okay. So I know you
So,
don't do sign-in sheets. So you have a conversation with any of them to try to get any of their information? Because I know today we're going to kind of talk about follow-up
yes.
strategies. So
So
what's your line or your angle to be like, hey, let me get your digits, you know?
So if they give me like if when they say no, this isn't the one, I'm always like, okay, what about it doesn't work? Like the one family, I swear to God, is Jason Kelsey's son. Um, he and the dad were huge. They didn't fit in the showers. Like we need
Mm,
taller showers. No, that's a very specific thing because these were normal size showers.
yes.
So that might be something you have to customize.
Yeah.
Um, and the one person wanted to know the family with a couple kids, they had lived in the neighborhood for like 15, 20 years. Like when they first started dating all this stuff. And um they were like, this isn't the original owner, but is it the son that lives here? And I was like, I don't know. So
That's
I
a
said,
great
what's your
question.
right? I was like, he said, because we met the owner of this 20 years ago with their little boy. Like they walked through the neighborhood. And I was like, I think this is a younger couple. So let me check. And just in case the listing agent doesn't get back to me, what's your name and phone number?
Hmm.
And so I got it that way. And so they also were the family, like very interested. So used Forewarn to find addresses. And I dropped off not a full CMA, but like hey, this is what our PR is saying your house would be worth. This is what your original mortgage was. Looks like you have a ton of equity. So buying this house really wouldn't increase your monthly payment that much.
Right.
Would you be interested? So I dropped that off Sunday. Um, if if I didn't like get direct contact, what I usually do is like, if I try to, is what are you looking for? Let me see what I can find in the MLS, and I'll send it to you. So hopefully, I mean, we have an offer, but if we could shake out another one, that would be
That would
great
be
too.
great. Yeah. It's always,
Yeah.
one's great, but I always like to have multiples. The other thing, there is something to be said though. A bird in the hand is better
One in
than
the
two in
hand.
the one. Yeah.
Yeah, one in the
Something.
hand's better than two in the bush or something like
Yeah.
that.
That's what, yeah. My Nana used to say that a lot. And I was like, what?
Right.
I
It means it's
understand it as an adult now.
right. I was saying, and for those of you who don't, it means it's better to actually have a bird than trying to be
Then,
chasing two that you don't have. Is
yes.
my understanding of it, right? Like
Hmm.
hunting, you're still hunting the two that are in the bush. You don't
Hmm.
have any to eat, so you're
Yeah,
gonna starve.
usually when she would say that to me, it had something to do with food, and I was like, "Can I have another one? Can I bargain for two?" And she's like, "One in the hand is better than two in the bush." And I'm like, "Okay, but can I have another one?"
Oh, your grandma's nicer than mine. My grandma would have just been like, "You're gonna get fat," and I'd be like, "Oh, okay."
Oh no, my Nana loved to feed people. That was her love language was food.
So anyway, so for my follow up with the people whose contact information I did get, a lot of times I'll do a thank you letter or thank you card.
Mhm.
That has only backfired on me once. I had a crazy psycho woman who gave me her name, her phone number, her email, said she wanted to sell her house,
Mhm.
and freaked out on me for sending her a thank you letter.
Yes.
So be careful with that. Feel the person out. Looking back, there were a lot of red flags with her. Um, so I'm glad she like freaked out and was like,
Do you
ah.
send branded are your like thank you cards like Alyssa Courier or I mean not Alyssa Courier, your homegirl cards?
They're not. So those are probably something I should invest in. And I just,
No, don't do
every,
it. Don't
right?
do it. The Hallmark
That's,
cards are just like, well, not even Hallmark actually.
yeah, no, like I go and I search the clearance rack at TJ Maxx for thank you cards. Yeah. Or that, like,
This is a big old box. There's 40 in here. I just actually this one's almost empty, so I got a new one. I love the box, but they have there's some that are specific for like birthday, holiday, you know what I mean, those kinds of things, but they're
mm-hmm.
like I get a lot of them that are blank. Like that's what I order. And they're just like I feel like people get so excited to see a cute card in
Yeah.
the mail
And that's
versus like
why,
a business card.
right. And that's why I've stuck with, because I've heard both ends. Like, do the generic one, the pretty one, and stick a business card in it.
Mm-hmm.
Or get branded ones because it looks on point. And the branded ones just feel stuffy.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a time and place for those. Like maybe if I was sending, like I always send thank yous to attorneys and lenders and the agent on the other side of a deal. That to me is more realistic to have the branded card. Because I don't need to
Mm-hmm.
stick my business card in there. They have my contact information. So that's where I think I would go more branded. But yes, for open houses, or my clients, I use just like the cute ones from TJ Maxx. That's literally what my family buys me as stocking stuffers every year.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and then if I got their phone number, I might shoot them a text, and usually what I'll say is, "Hey, I know this house wasn't for you, but I was looking at the MLS, and this is after I thank them for coming. I found this listing. Would love to know if it's something you're interested in. Hope to hear from you, or look forward to hearing from you. I never say hope." Um, and so that kind of opens up the conversation a little more, or reiterates like, hey, I have other houses that might fit what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And if they're like, I have one guy, actually the open house I did for you, I have one guy who's like, just put me on a general search and I'll look at it. And he's like, we do kind of want to move out of what we're in, but it has to be the right house in the right area with the right amount of land, and we're not like in a rush.
Yeah,
So
the
he's been on a
stars have
search
to
for,
align.
yeah, he's been on a casual search, and like if I'm looking at stuff and I happen to see something, I'll send it to him and be like, hey, saw this, not sure if you saw it,
Mm-hmm.
but it reminded me of you. So
Yep.
I try not to be pushy, but I try and keep that door open by saying, hey, like, this makes me think of you.
Yep.
So, and then if I did get full email and everything, obviously I put as much information as I have in my CRM. What the? Oh, sorry. I just put my foot up on the chair behind me, and I could feel a creature pushing into my foot, but I couldn't like understand the texture of what I was feeling. It's
Which
Mabel.
creature was it? Yeah.
It's Mabel.
That's
But I was like,
funny.
what is on my chair
The
right now?
other thing besides your CRM that I usually put people into, and I actually have a list of people that I have to put into the platform today, is HomeBot. I love HomeBot so
Yes.
much. It's so easy. It's not aggressive. It's not pushy. Um, and if you like set them up as a buyer, like if they get that first email and seeing like what's happening in that immediate market where they're looking, because you can put in the zip code of where your open house was, that kind of thing. They then, if they have a house to sell, they can put in their address and it'll be like, oh, do you want to see what we're seeing? And then you get a
Yeah.
notification. Like it's just, I love it. You get to see who opens the email every month, who's like pushing buttons and clicking things and changing things, and that's just, I
So,
love that.
and that's something you can do in Lofty too.
Is it really?
So,
Gosh,
yeah,
that's terrible.
I've set people up that way just to be like, okay, once every other month, send them a market report as to what's happening in their neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
Once
Yep.
every 6 months, send them the valuation of their home so that they can see it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you can do that. A lot of CRMs will do that too.
That's cool.
Um, if you are using HomeBot and they have a luxury property or a lakefront property, just know it's going to be wrong.
Oh
Absolutely
yes.
wrong.
A
Or
lot
if
of times it's wrong anyways, but sometimes you get sent a home valuation, they'll reach out and be like, that number's wrong. There's no way my
right,
house is worth that. And again, it's a conversation starter, and you say, yeah, that's a computer generated number.
right.
Let me take a look.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I was going to say is like, so be prepared for that conversation because it's going to be wrong. That or like if it's a farm or like a rural house with a ton of land, it will
Uh-uh.
be wrong. I even pulled
Land is hard.
RPR had one because I'm pursuing expired listings, and it had one, and the listing before was for like 500 some odd $1,000. RPR was like 43,000. I was like, no, that's wrong.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
not
wrong.
sending that to these people because
Wrong.
they're gonna think like that's way too far off.
I had a
Um,
pre-listing appointment yesterday, not to go off on a tangent, but computer generated numbers are exactly that. Like they had three other agents that they interviewed over the weekend, which is fine, and I was camping. And so like, well, if you can get here Friday, like we'll interview you. And I'm like, I can't actually. I can be there Monday. And they're like, okay, great. I sent them the pre-listing presentation that I have through email. And she'd opened it and gone through a bunch of stuff. And then she was like, yeah, Monday. She's like, we'll wait. We'll talk to you on Monday. And I was like, oh, sweet. I already got like a foot in the door. They're already like, I'm providing value ahead of time. So
Right.
if you want to wait a couple of extra days, just imagine what you're going to get when I show up in person.
Right.
And she said, she showed me the printout. And it literally, she's like, yeah, this guy said that it's worth XYZ because these properties, A, B, C, closed, and like the average price per square foot is 127, which means we can list it for this. And I'm like, oh
Mm.
my God.
If I hear
You,
one more person try to value a house based on price per square foot.
oh, what? That doesn't even
Ugh.
make that. I understand why. Oh, yeah, no, you have 1,200 square feet. So all of the comps average out at $140 a square foot. So 140 times 1,200, here's your price. That's not, that's not,
Not how we do it.
that's
I
not
love
how
when
we
my
do it.
clients try to say that. Well, they got this per square foot. And I'm like,
That's
okay.
not,
But
no.
that's like the one is it was their daughter's house. Their daughter lives like up near you, Newton Maiden area.
Mm-hmm.
And they live in Gastonia in a really nice neighborhood with like brick mini mansions built in the 90s. And I'm like, that's not going to be the same.
No.
Like hers was a brand new, granted, it was a modular on a foundation.
Mm-hmm.
But still, I was like, that's not how that works. Thank you.
No, not at all. Which is just so, so crazy. So if again, this is a follow-up piece for, and computer-generated numbers are great to start conversations, but just know that it's not a set it and forget it that CMA is done. Like
Right.
this particular house that I went to go, and that's why I don't tell people where I would list it before I ever see the house in person because it would be very different numbers
Yes.
because there's no way
Yep.
to tell.
Yeah, I might send them the RPR, but there's going to be a note that says this is just an estimate. This is I won't know until I see it in person and run
Yeah.
actual comps.
Yeah, and like her boxes, I'll circle that and be like, here's what the computer spit out. Let's see what, I call it a a structure, not a range. That's
Right.
something I recently started doing. So I'll be like, after I get to meet you and your property in person, I will have a better pricing structure to offer you.
Right.
But,
Yep. And I can't even
because
say hey, do
again,
that. With my most recent listing, they were like, we just want this for it. And I was like, actually, I think we should list it 5,000 higher. And they're like, okay, cool. And I was like,
nice.
all right. Like, it's always nice when you walk in and they're like, they know you're the person. And they're like, whatever you tell us to do, we'll do. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, it's way easier. It is way easier that way for sure. But yeah, I think that that's a huge follow up piece because so many people, again, we talked about this last week, that open houses are for buyers and not necessarily. Not like I'm following up with somebody who went to an open house for my listing in Hudson that's now closed, but they're looking at selling. It was a neighbor that stopped by. So there's so much more opportunity in an open house than just buyers walking through. And I think that that's a huge miss when
Yes.
people do open houses.
And I also think, like, you need to remember, and this rang true with me this weekend, just because they didn't buy that house does not mean you should give up on them. So I had a surprise showing on Sunday with some clients. We had to scoot up to the mountains real quick because the seller had a couple offers and didn't want to wait until till Monday to let us get up there. I wish you could see what's happening on my desk right now. So I all of a sudden, like, I was in house cleaning mode and threw on a sundress real quick and drove an hour and a half to the mountains. And they came to a house that I sold in April of 2023. I think it was. It may have been 2022. I don't remember if it's a year or two since I sold that house. Very special house to me. It was my best friend's house who passed away. They were at that house. I thought he was a realtor at first, which is hysterical, and then I realized he wasn't. They didn't buy that house, didn't talk to them again. I sent them a thank you letter. I set them up with reminder media for my magazines, and he found me on Facebook and then told his wife, you need to follow her. Like, she's adorable. You need to follow her. And so They followed me on social media. So they bought a house from me July of that year, which is actually hysterical. So remember I said the crazy lady yelled at me for sending the thank you card?
Yeah.
I literally that day, it was one of those days where I was maxed out when she decided to yell at me. And I had just like shut everything off. 9 o'clock that night, they said, "Can we go see this house tomorrow?" Like very random. He's like, "I hope you remember me from the open house. We'd like to see this house around the corner tomorrow." And I was like, yeah, sure."
Right.
So it was literally like, okay, that strategy didn't work with one person, but it did work with this person. We bought them a house in July for their son. They're now looking for themselves, and we're looking anywhere from like 500 to 1.5 million dollar houses, because it's one of those where it's like it just has to be the right one, and we'll pay what we want for the right one.
Yeah.
And they literally, like, we saw this house the other day, and they said, "Let's go get a drink. Our favorite bar is down the street. Let's buy you a drink." And I was like, "Oh, you don't have to do that, but sure." Super cute place, by the way. Totally have to check it out. And we had this great conversation, but she's like, we used to work with like 4 or 5 realtors. We don't. We've gotten rid of all of them. We use you now. And I was like, "What?" She was like, "You just like one." She was like, you and your reels, you crack me up." She's like, "I just can't not watch you. Like, if your content comes up, I have to look at it." And I was like, "Wow, okay, cool. Like, it's working."
Yeah.
And then she said, she's like, "I use your magazine every month. Like, I actually cook the recipes in it. It sits on our coffee table." And I wanted to say to her, "Hey, could you like put it in like the general?" Because they're living in an apartment building right now. Because they were like, "We don't know what we want to do with our lives." And they sold their house over in like the Myers Park area during COVID, bought a camper, and traveled the country for 2 years.
I love that.
Because yeah, they both have remote, they own their own company that they do remotely. So they moved back into the lofts across the street from me, and she was like, we love you. So don't give up, because they own. I happen to be talking about how I'm like pursuing expired listings and foreclosures, and they were like, "Oh, ding ding ding, like we do actually own some rental properties. Let us know if you get one of those off market. We would be interested." And I'm like, "Okay." So now I know,
Perfect.
like, so don't give up on those open house connections. If they like, just put them, maybe not on a drip, but put them on something. Check in with them now and then, just like you would have, maybe do a pop by. If you use like a magazine or a, quarterly thing, put them on that, because you never know um what it'll turn into. Or like her brother, I said, "I didn't realize not that I'm stalking you, but her brother's all over social media." And I said, "I didn't realize your brother lived locally. I think I saw him at the grocery store the other day." And she was like, "Oh no, he just moved up after a divorce. But once that's finalized, we think he's going to stay in
He's
the
gonna
area and we'll
buy
need
a house.
something."
Yeah.
So just keep in, I feel like I beat this like a dead horse, but keep in contact with people, because this is now 1, 2, possibly 3, if not more, transactions with one guy who came to an open house,
Yep.
who came with another investor who's actually the son of my veterinarian, which I was like, I didn't realize that, but that makes sense. So like, just keep in contact. Don't make it creepy. Put the content out there, because like I said, they may not buy now, but they may eventually, or they'll know people and be like, "Oh, we met this great person. You
Yep.
should really talk to her."
Yeah. If you don't
I
take anything else away from last week's episode and this week's episode, and we say this about, and not just open houses, the fortune is in the follow up. You have to be consistent. You can't just make that phone call once. You can't
Yeah.
just host that open house and then sometimes you will get that transaction immediately, but most of the time it's a job that we work. This is our career. Like, it's our job to follow up with people and have those conversations. So, um it's tedious, but that's where the payoff is.
Yeah, and like, what was I gonna say? Oh, like even with other things, like not just your open house. And I think you said this, but like I'm doing the letter campaign for expireds and FISBOs. Like I'm doing 8 touches for each of them. Is it a lot of work? Yeah, but hopefully it will shake something loose. So
Yep.
yeah, it's definitely in the follow up. Now, here's a question: have you ever done a virtual open house?
Only one, and I hated it.
So
It
how
was
did you do it?
So I did a Facebook event. This was during COVID when we weren't even supposed to be doing open houses. And I did a Facebook event. So previously, before I was a real estate agent, I did paparazzi jewelry. I don't know if you know what that is. It's $5 jewelry. And I did a lot of like live shows
I was
and
gonna
like
say, were you that lady on
parties
Facebook
and
Live trying to sell me jewelry?
yeah, sure was. That was me. And listen, I made great money at it, so don't knock it
Hey, if
until
it
you try it.
works.
But so I ran that open house, like the virtual open house, very similar to that. So I created an event on Facebook, and each day I set it up like a week in advance. And each day it was like a new piece of information about the house that was dropped, like you would like your pampered chef party online. Make it feel like inviting. So
Right.
people would interact on those posts. The day of was a scheduled, I'm going live in this house, right? And I did that. There's probably only 15 people that watched the video live, not very much interaction. I left the event page up, saved the video so it could still be like seen, but it was just like, I don't know. I didn't like it at all.
So obviously that was during a much different time than we're in now. Like you could
Yes.
only, and still they probably didn't want you to, like you mentioned.
Hmm.
If you were to do it now, how would you do it? Because I have thoughts about it.
Oh, well, I can't wait to hear your thoughts, but I would do it like the same way. I would make it wouldn't be like I create an event, but the only thing that happens is a live video. It would be a piece by piece, drop by drop, kind of like leading up to the event. Um, Now I do like Matterport tours and things like that, so that would be something that would be put in there, I think. Um, Drawings for throughout the process, just to try to get as many people involved in it as possible. And then again, like a set time, I will be live streaming in the property. Ask me specific questions. Let's look at specific things. That's how I would do it.
So during the time you're streaming, though, um, or the time you are streaming, would you stream during the open house? Because what if people come in? Or would you do, like, my thought is exactly what you just said. And then I would be like, hey, the virtual open house is 30 minutes to an hour before. So that, hey, if you really like what you're seeing on here, I'll be here for the next 2 hours in person. Why don't you come over and see it with me? I
Yeah,
think that's
I
how.
wouldn't. I wouldn't do it all at the same time. I think you miss opportunities to connect with people that maybe were in the house, and are probably like dancing around more than you would if it was just you and the empty house talking to the people online.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And like I said, I would do it even maybe the day before, do a 30-minute virtual open house and just be
Hmm.
like, hey, here's, and again, schedule it in that Facebook event to say the night before, let's do a Facebook Live and you can come see it virtually so that do you want to come tomorrow or not? Like, let me give
Hmm.
you more information.
Hmm.
Right, well,
I
I
think that's it.
think, yeah, and so I want to touch on one other thing. Your virtual open houses, make sure you're following up on there too. Pay attention to who commented, who watched it, and reach out to them after.
Hmm.
Because again, if you're not following up, and that's easy, it's a Facebook message, it's a TikTok message, whatever platform
Yep.
you're using, like go back into it and just be like, hey, did you like what you see? Are you looking for, like, just open that conversation. Even if it just starts with, hey, thanks for checking out my open virtual house or virtual open house. I really appreciate the support,
Yep.
and see where it goes from there.
Yeah.
But I think that wraps up our Maximizing Open House Success episode. Episodes, part 2.
Episodes.
Z. Z.
Okay, we
All
won't
right,
talk about
guys.
open houses for a while. I promise.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
again. For a
If
minute.
anything, the only thing I think we'll talk about again is, like, if I get a buyer or a listing and be like, how did I do it?
Hmm.
How did that happen after that open house? But all right, guys, thank you for joining, and we will see you next Tuesday.
We just finished another episode of Contracts and Chaos, but believe me, the chaos does not stop here. So check out the show notes for our email address and where to follow us on socials, and we will see you next week.